Good afternoon, everyone. Before I start, I'd like to first thank the Riverside Vet Court, the representative of the great state of California, the Reaching New Heights Foundation, and most importantly, my peers in the audience for granting me this opportunity to speak in front of all of you today to share my story. Mine is not a hero story by any means. It is, however, a brief description of a young man's journey and the valuable lessons he learned along the way. This is what I hope to share with you all today. My childhood was tough, but by no means tragic. I grew up in a household with an alcoholic father that I didn't see too much of, and a mother that worked a full-time job, plus raised 3 kids, myself being the oldest. At a very young age, as the oldest, this required me to step up and support my younger brother and sister, as well as my mother. My role was to act as the rock, or the non-emotional sibling when trying times with finances or parental arguments broke out. I remember at the age of 14 making the decision to join the Army, as I knew this would be the quickest way out of the house and the cycle of insanity that I grew up to know as everyday life. At age 18, a week after high school graduation, I joined the Army as an engineer and shipped out to Fort Leonard Wood that winter. Many of you who have been in the military know that as Fort Lost in the Woods, and it is lost. Many of my battle buddies in basic and AIT, if you spoke to them, would tell you that I was an all-star, making platoon leader in half of basic and all of my AIT for my class. But let me tell you a little bit about the behind the scenes of why that actually is. Growing up in a semi-broken household as a sibling that's expected to be strong when all others are upset, I developed the worst habit that I'd ever picked up in my life. That habit is the stuffing of my emotions I felt or wanted to express. To compound this habit, in basic, you are rewarded for a lack of emotion, and it is seen as being mentally tough and able to lead through adversity. So there I went out of basic and AIT, promoted for my toughness and rewarded as well. This was 2003 and 2004, and Operation Iraqi Freedom was ramping up. So in 2005, I was called for my first deployment. As an engineer in Ramadi and Balad with the 10th Mountain Infantry Division, I experienced several times the things you see in movies you think you're ready to handle. Again, going back to my habit of stuffing, you would have seen me and thought that was exactly true. With the Lord and my battle buddies by my side, I made it back safely, and in 2006 started my civilian career as a leader in logistics. I had come back a 21-year-old sergeant and was 120 miles an hour in everything I did. Quickly, I rose through the ranks at work due to my intensity and, again, lack of emotion in stressful situations. Stuffing emotions as I created my own personal time bomb. Wanting to test myself in the military a little bit more, I changed MOSs and went to school to be a 37 Foxtrot, or a psychological operations sergeant, otherwise known as PSYOPs. Knowing that the company I joined had an upcoming deployment and I wanted to be there when they went. In 2009, that became reality, and we were deployed to Afghanistan to conduct PSYOP campaigns in RC South in the Kandahar and Helmand province. This deployment tested those stuffing abilities to the max. Towards the end of the deployment, I felt myself as mentally exhausted in a way I had never felt before. And I introduced a pack of cigarettes a day and dipping a can every 2 to help settle my nerves. But again, in 2010, I made it back safely as a promoted staff sergeant with several decorations. This time, I was not the energetic 21-year-old that could just stuff away and enjoy the day. During the demo, a specific memory I always recall is when you have to go speak to the counselor. All the vets who deploy, you know what I'm talking about. All of my team sergeants and I had already pre-scripted our answers for them to avoid any prying and, most importantly, delaying a quick trip back home to see our family and loved ones. I think back to that as the great opportunity to seek help, and it was right there in front of me, and I let it slip away. Going home for the second time, alcohol became to dig its roots in my life as another way to blank out memories and settle my nerves. Back to work I went, and again a promotion and success led to a marriage of my wife Kelly and I and a new career in California, moving from Georgia where I grew up my entire life. I was out of the military now and my civilian career was going great. However, behind the scenes, my marriage was becoming more and more difficult. I began to drink more and more, and my isolation and yearning to be alone grew and grew as I was in an unfamiliar state with no friends, no support network, and a failing marriage I was 100% responsible for. My wife and I separated in August of 2015 and filed for divorce that December. Now I was alone with only work for a company, and my life spiraled out of control tenfold. On April 26, 2016, I found myself in handcuffs, sitting in the back of a police car thinking, how has this all gone wrong? I work so hard and try so hard, and I've been so successful, I just don't get it. Totally oblivious to the isolated state I had put myself in. The next day I went to my home, and the stuffing had had its limits on me. I prayed and I called my wife, and for the first time with any person I had ever known, I was 100% honest and open, and years of stuffing came out, pouring out like a volcano of emotions. After an hour of this, the last thing I expected to hear came over the phone. She said that talk to her meant more than any physical gifts I'd ever given her combined. Agreed to take me back with just 2 weeks of our 6 months cooling off period. There were, however, two asks. The alcohol could not be a part of our lives moving forward, and we needed to seek professional support. I agreed to both instantly, and I'm proud to say that on April 19th and May 16th of this year, Kelly and I both celebrated 2 years sober and free from alcohol. Thank you. Now, I've been speaking to you a little bit about my life events that unfolded, but now it's time to talk about the numerous blessings that occurred over the past 2 years that got me to this podium. That very weekend, we made our commitments. We met and went to a volunteer program at the San Bernardino Vet Center to help build a garden. At that park, supporting were young men and a stern figure helping and watching over them. That figure was none other than Sergeant Major Croker. We talked a little bit, and I felt an immediate connection to his own story, and he opened the gate to the second ask I spoke of before, the professional support. It took time, but in October 2016, I entered vet court. For my peers that are new, I will tell you firsthand that the beginning is tough, but it is necessary. As successful as I was at work, I had not yet developed the needed tools and habits to walk a sober life on my own. The first phase of this process helped stabilize this, and for the first time in my life, I had the courage with the accountability of the program to get in those circles at the Combat Vet Center and my recovery meetings and talk without worry of persecution or judgment or my emotions that I would let go. And I can't describe to you how important those are to this day and how they will be forever in my life. For 32 years, I had not had an outlet, and every traumatic experience, whether civilian or military, was just bottled away. And I'll tell you, while they're bottled up, they leak. They leak in the form of anxiety, they leak in the form of stress, anger, drug and alcohol dependency, and most importantly, depression. But with this outlet, I had the burden lifted and felt so much lighter, and the clarity of what I needed and wanted out of life became so much easier to define. Now my recovery is focused on taking time and not being in a hurry. In this technological age, being in a hurry is almost expected. But I can tell you, not taking time for yourself and today and right now creates the same symptoms that I spoke to about stuffing. Today, as much as I am tempted to, I am not concerned about what happened in the past, what might happen tomorrow or the next, but right now, right here, speaking to each and every one of you. So that's what I leave here, hoping you take from my story. Take time for the here and now. No matter what your struggle is, whether it be civilian or military related, find an outlet to get it out of your system, because getting it out there should not be feared, and that's where you're going to find the solution for it. Leave this building here today, and I challenge you not to look at your phone or your email or think about what you're going to do next, but instead stop, breathe, take it all in, and look around. Take a breath and think about taking it one day at a time. Thank you again for allowing me to speak today, and I wish you all the best.